Coming up on this episode of EdTech, we talk about Dante, Blue River chips, and digital signage.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is EdTech episode 48, What About Dante? EdTech is brought to you by our fine underwriters like FSR.
This is EdTech.
This is EdTech. I'm Bill O'Donnell, a host of your monthly higher ed podcast, and I'm joined with me this month with Spencer Graham from West Virginia University. I'm also joined by Mike Tomei, and as always, the beloved Ernie Bailey. So, that being said, gentlemen, first off, happy holidays. I know all of us are probably in the mode of gearing up for renovations as well as the projects that we said, yes, we will get to it. And we are now going to be in between on that gap of, okay, the students aren't here, the finals are finally done, and okay, let's get into the classrooms that we can. So it's going to be all sorts of fun in the next couple of weeks for all of us. First off, I want to give the floor to Spence. Spence is actually his specialty is emergency notification and digital signage, specifically over at West Virginia University. And Spence, I believe you are going to be the keynote speaker, or one of the keynote speakers at Digital Signage Expo in 2017. So if you want to elaborate on that a little.
Right. Well, I'm privileged to have been involved with the Digital Signage Expo for a number of years on their advisory board, and I've also headed up a number of their educational sessions over the years there, and great people to work with. I encourage anybody and everybody to come to Digital Signage Expo. It's in Las Vegas this year. It's March 28th to the 31st, and it is chock full of not only great educational sessions when it comes to digital signage and content and networking, things like that, but you're going to have all those vendors there that if you're ever doing R&D, that's a perfect place to be, because you can sit down there and talk to the guy that invented it or talk to the people that sell it. My entire team goes every year there because we are able to really pack a lot of living in a very short period of time with the stuff that we're wanting to do on campus. I'll be specifically speaking about emergency messaging this year. It's called Emergency Alert. And we'll kind of dissect what goes on, what is the dynamic in an alert situation on a college campus. Unfortunately, we read too often what things are going on some of these campuses in a crisis. I always say that evil people do their evil deeds at evil times of the day. And we don't have that luxury of picking and choosing the time of our next crisis. And so our emergency alert situation is threefold. We have digital signage, we have a text alert, and an email alert that goes out there. So we'll be kind of talking about some of those things at the Digital Signage Expo. And like I say, it's a fantastic experience for anybody that goes. And you can get a ton of things done while you're there when you're looking at your technology and software situations.
Yeah, so there you actually have time where you can talk with the actual engineers, and it's not just, and I don't mean anything bad by this, you're not getting blitzed by just the sales guys. It's really more of, well, this is what we're looking to do. This is the issues we have on campus. This is the number of locations. And by the sounds of it, it's really like, well, we have a solution. Let's work it out. Let's mesh it. Let's work it to where it's tailored to you. Now, I'm not saying it's everything's absolutely custom, but it's really more of, okay, these are the requirements that you need. This is what we have to hit, and these are the network issues that we have.
Right, and not everybody wears size 12 shoes, so you have your own specific situations. And so if you're looking at software, when I first started 8, 9 years ago, there was like 2, maybe 3 software vendors out there. Now there's all sorts of software that do all sorts of things for a digital signage network, including emergency alerts. But you have the ability to sit there and talk to a number of people so that you have good data to make your decisions. Now, you don't necessarily have to make your decisions there, but you can come away with talking to the people that supply the mounting solutions to your digital signage. You can talk to a number of people that create the monitors. You can talk to a number of software vendors that are there, all sorts of technology. So you go away with a ton of information to make good decisions.
Well, that's good. So, folks, if you get a chance, Spence, when is Digital Signage Expo?
That is March 28th to the 31st in Las Vegas at the Las Vegas Convention Center.
Oh, yes. That's, as I say, I know that convention center well. I make a recommendation to anyone, if they are going to go to that, it's good to book a hotel anywhere along the monorail line because it brings you right to there. But that's my own experience. So that being said, thank you, Spence, on that note. We're going to move on to our first article, which is from Commercial Integrator. Mostly it talks about how Extron has actually brought out their new digital matrix processors, which, if you're not aware, Extron got into the digital signal processor business. And if you've got a chance to play around with this software, or specifically their digital signal processors, it's more like it's a cross-point matrix. And if you've ever played around with Clear One or a sound structure unit or things like that, it's like that. It's, you go along the cross-point matrix, you kind of click, you find where your inputs are, you click to your outputs, and you do your signal processing along that matrix. And to counterbalance that, you have BSS or BIAMP and a couple other ones that will go, and they do an open architecture, and you can kind of program it however you like. But Extron has really kind of made it more of the kind of click, a couple of clicks and you're done. So I'm gonna throw this around the room. Mr. Ernie, what do you think of this?
I like the idea, and we use the open architecture plan here on our campus just because of the flexibility. But for building a quick system, something easy to put together, I like this idea. The thing that really confuses me about this, as a brand new product coming out there, you have to get their plus AT model to have Dante.
Yeah.
That should be at the baseline of any DSP that comes out now, in my opinion.
No, I totally agree with you in that one, in the fact that Crestron, when they put out their DSP, which we've talked about in the past, but off the bat, they said, oh no, we don't, you have your Clear Ones, which have their expansion, their own expansion bus of the G-Link. You have BSS that has their Blue Link expansion bus, and Crestron looked at all that and said, we're not doing the proprietary bus. You want a bus? Here's Dante. Here you go. There you go. So I do agree with you on that one, and the fact that is it necessary to have a proprietary bus? Not really. I mean, if you have a proper network and you have Dante, then you should be kind of all good to go. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I've actually used the Extron DSPs. They're smaller versions. They have some like maybe a 6x6 input 4 output DSP version, and some smaller versions. So I've actually used them in the past. I found them really easy to configure the software. I had no problem, and these were like kind of small to mid-sized classroom systems, and they did a great job for what I needed. I wasn't doing any conferencing, so I didn't have any acoustic echo cancellation going on in there. So these larger models definitely have all those features packed into there, which is great. It really kills me to have to buy a DSP and then also buy extra add-on boxes to support Dante or VoIP, if we're using a VoIP connection for conferencing, to buy another VoIP endpoint box or a USB audio box. And all of a sudden your DSP turns into 4 rack units of all these things interconnected that you're probably going to have one of them die at some point and like be the weak link in your connection here. So it's nice to see these DSPs that are packing all these features into one box. Yeah, I think Dante can definitely be declared the winner by now as far as all of these audio formats go. I say that now, but then who knows, a year from now, 2 years from now, who knows what'll pop
Oh,
up.
it could be worse. We could still see units that still have CobraNet on them. So
yeah, right. Well, some of these modular DSPs that you can buy, where you can buy the cards that go in them, they still have all of those kind of CobraNet or some more legacy cards that you can pop in there if you're still running those networks. But it is nice to see Dante on there. I agree. Dante should be everywhere right now on these DSPs, and I think everybody's going to need for it.
Well, yeah, if you look at it, and Spence, this kind of relates back to you on this one. Extron, let's see, Extron, I believe Kramer. I don't know if Crestron's done it, but I know Crown has done this, in which they started making their audio amps have Dante endpoints in them. So now you can just go and say, oh yeah, here, we need to have speakers over in this area. Yeah, you know what, we'll just throw a amp in, make sure you throw in a proper network connection, and there you go. So it does make, as I say, having Dante does kind of make things like distributed audio or, a mass notification system a lot easier rather than before maybe you would end up having, it all kind of depends with how your setup is for that. Some systems have it where there are message players set out over across the network. But if there's ways to kind of simplify things, I think Dante is definitely working its way through and making that a bit easier for implementation's sake and everything. So, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I was just going to say I've used in my previous life there at WVU, I was with WVU Television Productions, and we used Extron and Crestron, things like that in our distance learning classrooms, and they were great at the time. Now we're talking 6-8 years ago, but at the same time, I can say this just from the standpoint of managing that particular network. When you had those things in different rooms and different electronic classrooms around the state, the learning curve of trying to get an instructor trained to be able to know what buttons to push. That was the, to be quite honest, it was fantastic technology if you're a technologist. However, a lot of these instructors are not technologists, they are teachers. Yeah. And getting them up on that learning curve was one of the biggest challenges that we had, because each semester you had a new instructor to train. And about the time they got done with their very last lecture, 6 weeks, 8 weeks into the course, they were up to speed, and then they were gone. So that's the big thing, is making things convenient enough and not overtink the works, so to speak, in making it so complicated to get them to be able to know how to use it in their space.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing. One of the things that Mike and Ernie and I have all had talks about is it's coming up with trying to make standards through the classrooms. Now, it doesn't mean that every single classroom has to be, you're only getting this across the entire board. Well, no, some rooms, are meant for video conferencing, and so there's going to be a little specialized. But essentially, you kind of set up almost like tiers with these things, and after a while, the faculty kind of look around and they look and they go and say, "Oh, all right, I'm in a regular classroom. Okay, the system is over here. The touch panel does this," and for the most part, you try to make it to where everyone knows. Okay, if I hit the projector button and I hit PC, the whole thing will kick into effect, and I'm good. So it's about standardization, and you're right on that one. It's trying to get the faculty on board is a very critical step. The second step is making sure that they're comfortable with everything, which is kind of standardization. So this is one thing that this is another article, speaking of standards, that's actually from AV Network. And specifically, it's about the company. They put out an article about how AptoVision is releasing their new Blue River chip, as well as their Blue River APIs. Now, if you're not familiar with Blue River, if you're a technologist, you've seen how most technology these days, or most systems, usually have HD-based T. Well, Blue River essentially has started making chipsets that actually use your network, and specifically, just it's video over the network. And their whole idea is, listen, it's great that you guys are using everything over Cat 5 or Cat 6, or even some cases fiber. It's a lot easier here. We'll just put it on the network, and your network switch acts as the switch. And it's kind of interesting to see that go forward. I won't lie, a lot of campuses have already kind of delved heavily into HD-based-T, but it kind of seems to me that the article is kind of pushing it as, hey, we now have APIs, we now have standards, we now have ways to where you can actually make it to where the control systems can actually start controlling these things and actually shooting it out there. It's an interesting concept. I think it's the eventual end goal. From moving from HD-based-T to eventually, we'll have things directly on the network. Mike, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of misconception out there by AV people about the differences between HD-based-T and AV over IP. And you were mentioning that a lot of people have gone into the HD-based-T world, or maybe Crestron Digital Media, which is based on HD-based-T, or
well, you have Extron
yeah.
Their XDP.
Exactly. It's all kind of based on HD-based-T. So with HD-based-T, you have your point-to-point connections. Really, you can't run HD-based-T through like an enterprise network switch. Pull off a Cisco switch off the rack and off the wall, and just stuff it in your rack and run it through there. But so this article is talking about OptoVision, which creates AV over IP chipsets, like you were mentioning, and a lot of people have started talking over the past couple of years about AV over IP. One of the other big players was SVSI, and then got purchased by AMX. But they were doing the same sort of thing. They you had endpoints still. So you had a sort of a transmitter and a receiver that were converting your video and audio signals to IP signals, and you were able to run them through enterprise network switches, which is great. I mean, this is the way everything will be going in the future. When you talk to your network services people on campus about this, they kind of will immediately freak out. So
how much bandwidth?
Yeah, exactly. They want to know how much bandwidth immediately. So it's not necessarily something that you can just, we're going to take every piece of gear and throw it on the network and be able to run everything through our enterprise network here. This article talks about the kind of very high definition, like 444 transport for video and audio that is taking almost 10 gigabits per second, which is going to just fill a big switch.
Make you a lot of friends in network engineering.
Oh yeah, if I was a Cisco sales rep, I would be looking at this going, yeah, no, totally, you should definitely be getting on this. Why? Because
right.
It's like, say hello to our new top of the line Catalyst switches.
Yeah.
Which is it a bad thing? No. Is it the eventual end goal? Yes. Do I think that we're actually going to go away from network cabling to fiber? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And I guess you have to make a decision too. What kind of how high quality video signal do you need, and what kind of audio latency or delay can you deal with? So somebody like SVSI, they make a few different tiers of equipment here for AV over IP. So they'll have high compression like H.264 encoders and decoders that can be used on a network, and your network services people will love you because it's not a lot of bandwidth compared to when you start stepping up into their higher end encoders and decoders, when then you're getting into like these really high bandwidth signals, but it's much higher quality video. It's not as compressed, and then there's a lot less audio latency with that sort of thing. So you can still design these systems and put them on a network and not cripple the network. Or if you really need that high quality video and audio, you can create your own network, if you will, for these AV signals and still be using network switches. It's just not all your other network traffic is not going through those same switches.
Yeah, it's one of these things where and Ernie, you can back me up on this one. This is where the three deadly letters in AV and more specifically in video conferencing came into mind, and that is we're probably going to start venturing more into quality QoS or quality of service, because all of a sudden it's going to be, well, we need to have this at this level. Okay, listen, our phone systems are also on the same system. They have established standards. Do you guys have established standards? Now that's a deadly phrase in the AV community, but I won't lie. Cisco does have within their own setups and everything, they have acceptable tolerances and limits as to when you have voice quality and how long you're allowed to have delay and jitter and everything. And if this stuff goes forward, I think you're going to start seeing that more and more. Ernie, as I say, what do you say on this one? This is, if anything, you're part of the IT department, so.
I am part of the IT department. I do see this. I don't see this as coming up in our next phase of renovations. The switches, our network switches that we have right now are not AVB compliant, and I don't see us looking at that as a standard across campus for a long time. We are first a hospital and a research institution with a university attached. That's that is the funding source. Patient care. So that's our driving force, and the HIPAA requirements and all that gets a lot more attention than me being able to send a signal over the network.
I can see in your case it turns into hey guys, we can definitely stream this from one auditorium to the other. Okay, that's great. How much bandwidth is that going to take up? This many gigs per second. Okay, we actually need that for our VoIP system, so that's going to take a backseat.
Well, we are doing some multicast streaming across campus, but we're taking, specific packages and sending it, we're not doing every class all the way to everywhere, but if we have a special event or a lecture that needs to be seen by multiple people, we, a couple button pushes and we can be there. So
yeah, that's interesting. Spence, this actually does affect your segment and things in terms of when it comes to the emergency announcements and when it comes to signage. Are you guys still using more of the hardware? Are you still using hardware players, or is it software based?
Well, we're doing, it's a combination of both. What we originally, a number of ways that we did it, we learned we were going across the backbone, Cat 5, Cat 6, that type of thing there, to an individual computer in a secure data closet in each building that did that. Now, then any monitor that was in that building, there was a home run back to that data closet there. And that gave us the ability to broadcast our, 99.99% of the time we are playing the standard WVU internal marketing message to our audiences there on campus. We have 32,000 students, 45,000 people a day on campus. So those are our audiences there. But everything now, the technology was such at the first time that anything in that building that was a home run back to that data closet all played the same message at the same time. Now with technology, we are tasking each individual monitor with a NUC there so that they can play, you may have 2 or 3 different departments in that building or even 2 different colleges in that building. They can be playing their own unique messaging into that area that they occupy. Everything has the ability to get the emergency messaging feature now. So we've done that, but I can't speak for all universities, and I'm not in charge of the IT department, but I do know that when it comes to IT, it's always a function of money. And what I can tell you, and I'm sure we're not the only ones experiencing tight budgetary economics
Mhm.
And it's a function of your resources that you can afford to spend at a given time, and we're trying to do that as we can. But the simple fact of the matter is, we're a state university
Mhm.
there, and so a portion of our budget comes from state funding. Well, we're also experiencing several years of budget cutting there, because we're heavy in natural resources here in West Virginia, and those types of taxes have been reduced significantly. So we're trying to do more with less right now, but certainly we're competing for student attendees all the time. So
Yeah, no,
you have to
I
stay up.
oh yeah, no, believe me, I know as William Patterson is a state school and everything, and I won't lie, as of late, our attendance has dropped a bit, but at the same time, we've also kind of started to focus on what has been bringing the students in mostly, and for us, it's been teaching, it's been nursing, and man, I know when I say this, I'm gonna get angry emails from a couple of my own faculty. But kinesiology or kinesthesiology, it's the science of motion. I would have said phys ed, but believe me, if I say that, there'll be a dagger in my back in no time.
Yeah.
So no, I understand where you come from that one, because we do get some funding from the state. But on the second end of it, I don't know how your construction plans go, but we actually have to pay for our new buildings and for our new residence halls and academic buildings. We actually have to pay for them. In other states, usually it's the state that will go and provide the funding for it, but in our case, it's been a number of bond acts and everything, which is all sorts of fun when you have to go through and justify them, and then you look through the requirements and all the other fun little ins and outs, such as in this case, we have to use all union labor. Not that I'm knocking that. However, the last time I went walking in, they said, "Hey, where's your A card?" And I went, "Hey, I guess I'm have to walk around with the union electricians." So it is what it is on that one. That being said, let's see here. The last article. Once again, this is from AV Network, but this is it concentrates on an interesting aspect, and it's ADA based, but it's pretty much it's a blog about listening technologies and Wi-Fi and how they were going through and making assisted listening a little bit easier. Pretty much what ended up happening was Listen Technologies made Listen Wi-Fi, and the idea behind it is to make it to where everyone's got a handy dandy smartphone, and you could download the app and you could listen to programs or TV channels from your smartphone if, say, you're in a large congregation area. Now, it's not meant to replace, say, your traditional listening devices, which both Listen Technologies, Williams Sound, a couple other ones, they all make assisted listening, but this is meant for more like larger group spaces and everything. So this is more along the lines of your student unions, your gyms, your theaters, if you have multiple things going on, that kind of deal. So it's an interesting step forward, because it's the first time I think I've seen a company actually use a smartphone app as far as assisted listening. But I've been known to be wrong. Mike, I'm going to default to you because at times, sir, you know ADA far better than I do at times, especially during the days of Infocom classes.
It's true. Yeah, I did teach a course this past Infocom on ADA compliance for AV design, and so yeah, like you mentioned, it doesn't. This doesn't replace the need to have your minimum number of IR or RF receivers available for ADA. But this is a nice feature, like you were saying, for these kind of large areas that might have multiple displays, and you don't want to have audio playing in those areas, like a gym or campus center areas, or student union areas, like you were mentioning. So I think this is great. This the app is really easy to use, and for people that are downloading it, not necessarily people that are configuring it, but for the users that download it, it's very easy to use, and I think it's a great bit of business for these companies to get into now, instead of just selling their transmitters and receivers for ADA compliance, which you're probably going to install in the classroom and might not just necessarily use very often, and probably don't need to replace very often in those classrooms. They're just they're not really used very often, and people need them to comply with ADA. It's just the way it goes. So.
I will say this on that one. The wonderful world of ADA in that one is it always going to be there? Do you need to have it there? Yes. Is it always going to be used? Not always, but you don't want to be like Penn State, who got kind of caught with their pants down on that one, and they got fined a sizable chunk because they were not able to provide assisted listening for some folks or anything. So is it a necessary evil? Yes. Do I mean it as a necessary evil? No, of course not. But it's one of those ones of you put it in, and just when it comes up, do we have it? Yes, of course. Here you go.
And it's not a major cost either.
No.
Right.
That's the deal. It doesn't cost that much to do it.
In fact, as I say, Ernie, just out of curiosity, with when it comes to your school, has there been any other? Have folks asked for anything beyond it's usually just like the easy, they usually have the RF or the little loop transducer. It's never been anything that crazy.
Yeah, we use the RF units. We don't have a whole lot of demand for it, but until just the last few weeks, we've never had a compliance officer on campus, full-time position. They just created that.
Now, see, that's a deadly word in front of the officer. There is the magic words of compliance, especially in a hospital setting. But,
we're looking at we take care of it on the hospital side, but when we get into the academic side, we've had the tools there, and there's always been someone in the colleges that knows to put the student in touch with us. They don't always find out about the student. We'll, most of the time, when we do run across a student who's having trouble, he'll stop one of my staff at the beginning or end of class and say, is there a better place I could sit to hear better? And we say, are you going to be here for 10 more minutes? Let me go get you a receiver you can have for the semester. Mm-hmm. And it'll work in all the rooms, so that's where we are. We actually looked at the Listen Wi-Fi, talked to them a good bit at Infocom, but their issue is on a single Wi-Fi network, they're limited to, I think, 8 different sources.
Okay. Well, it's go ahead.
I'm sitting here. I've got 100+ Listen transmitters on campus, and we have a single Wi-Fi network. So, I would love to buy their devices. Then I'm not keeping up with as many receivers. Mm-hmm. And earbuds and all that. I just put a sign up, so go to
here's the app. Go to town.
Yeah, and select the correct room number, and you're there.
All right,
but I can't do that with what 8 do I pick?
Yeah, that's true. If anything, I think this is the first learning steps for them, and I think once Listen gets some good feedback from some of the stuff of hey, can you do this for multiple channels? I don't doubt it. If the eventual end goal is if they eventually went and got a Dante bus, put that in, and we're talking the big one, not a little 8x8. We're talking the 64x64 or something like that. And I could definitely see it to where, oh yeah, here you have your DSP in the room. You're able to route that to the Listen Wi-Fi server or something like that, or to a unit.
Yeah.
Put that in, and all of a sudden it turns into, oh, you don't need a device. Do you have a smartphone? Download the app. Bam. There you go. I think that would be the ultimate end goal, because then after that it's just software. Because name a college student that doesn't have an Apple like an iPhone or an Android phone of some sort, and I will show you some there are, I won't lie, there are some students that may not have it, but it's very low at this point. So that being said, we are coming close to end time here. So As I say, Spence, Mike, Ernie, I do thank you for your time. Ernie, where can the fine folks find you online?
You can generally find me on LinkedIn.
All right.
That's why.
And as I say, Mr. Tomei, where can they find you at?
I am on LinkedIn also, and my website is tomeav.com. It's TOMEIAV.com.
All right. And Mr. Spence, where can they find you at, sir?
The easiest place to get me is at West Virginia University. It's spencer.graham@mail.wvu.edu anytime.
All right. And I am Bill O'Donnell. You can find me on LinkedIn, as well as you can find me on Twitter at the original OD. Those are some of the easiest ways or quickest ways to find me. Thank you, and have a good month, guys.
Thank you.